Welcome and good afternoon. Welcome to LA2M. We apologize. Looks like we had some hiccups on our, is it Eventbrite? That we accidentally had the wrong address Buffalo Wild Wings. So we apologize to the people who haven't made it here yet, and some of you who are actually at this location. So we appreciate you coming. LA2M is basically just a marketing program. We also tie in networking with that, so we have opportunities for that. If you come early or after and you want to connect with somebody, feel free to do that. We also have basically just one paid admin, which is Stacy in the back, and most of the other, I forget if we have 5 or 6 of us, but we're all volunteer, so it's an all volunteer board pretty much. We also have sponsors, yearly sponsors. We happen to be one of them. My name is Corey from BDB Marketing Design, and we help companies, or our best clients come to us when they're struggling with their marketing or their web development projects and they just can't keep up with that. And we can help them out in many different ways with that. Do we have anybody else from University of Michigan, or nobody else? Okay, you're 2.7. And let me see. Basically, we're going to get started. We've been trying to cut down this portion of the meeting, so we're just going to get started with Sean. So we appreciate him coming here and volunteering his time. PWD Marketing Communications, and he's going to cut through the clutter.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly. 10 times, right?
You know, I was going to do that. Hi, I'm Bob Smith. Thank you for coming. In case you were all see if you're on the right room or not.
Right. So thank you. Let's welcome Sean.
Well, thanks for coming out in the busy holiday season. As I know, we're all trying to wrap up the year and turn into a pumpkin and vanish for the year. I will forewarn you. I'm a PowerPoint wanderer, so I'll be wandering around the room, and you'll probably lose me. Carter won't figure out how to take pictures of me. I was telling Chris Kamansky that this presentation evolved tremendously between about 6:30 this morning and now. So if I stumble on a slide, it's because I had a bunch of really good ideas when I was standing in the shower this morning. And that turned into gutting the presentation this morning. So this will be fun for all of us. Might be surprises for me too. Let's see if it wants to advance. Okay, so stories have marketing value. You probably know this because you're here today, right? So stories can do a lot of things. They can create a brand impression. They can clarify your positioning. And we're going to talk about some examples of those today. I'm going to give you a few that I really like, some that are local, some that are regional. One thing though that I find stories really good for is they make the complex understandable. I do a lot of work with business-to-business technology clients. It might be software, it might be might be engineering simulation software, it might be ERP software, it might be manufacturing technology, and it's stuff you can't see. But if you can tell a story that goes around it, create a metaphor, then people get it. And then the buyer's journey. Everybody familiar with Serious Decisions? If you're not, go check them out. They just got bought last week, I saw. And they have this thing called the buyer's journey, which sort of says that people go through a number of steps from awareness to consideration to selection to purchase to repeat purchase, and that they need different types of information all the way through that process. So some of what storytelling can do is help you to kind of realize, okay, this prospect is here in the cycle, and this is what they need to know right now. And it can do tons and tons of other stuff. I'm just a huge fan of it. So let's talk about what's in a story. I had a Wikipedia definition of what a story is. I'm assuming if you're here, so that's like I yanked this morning. So stories have a few things in them. They have setting, time and location that they happen. They have a plot, sequence of events, or how things unfold. They have a narrative. This is kind of the way the story is told. Is it third person? Is it first person? Is it historical? Is it moving forward? And all of those things. The best stories have conflict. And I don't care if you're talking about Star Wars or a TV commercial. There's some sort of conflict in there. And then they have a resolution. And hopefully, in marketing, we help our client deliver the resolution. There are characters that are in the story. So these may be the main character, they may be the hero. And we're going to talk about the hero a little bit here at the end. But all of these characters kind of play a role. And you think about all this stuff, and in the world of script writing, yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense, or in the world of fiction writing, or whatever. But for those of us in marketing, we're doing the same thing. We're just telling little stories, or maybe a little bigger story. I also love stories that are modular. In some cases, there's a long story. In some cases, there's a short story. In some cases, the short stories fit together to tell the long story. In some cases, they don't have to. But, and I think I'll show you some examples today of kind of how some of that works. But thinking of your stories kind of in those terms, I find to be really helpful, because we've all been, how many people have that one friend that can't tell a story worth of shit because it's way too long? I thought you said it was me. So yeah, you don't have to tell the whole story sometimes. Sometimes you can tell bits and pieces and it's a lot more interesting. The stuff you leave out is sometimes as interesting as the stuff you put in. But telling it well is really key. So this was the thing that sparked this whole revamp this morning. I think there are two types of stories. There are macro stories, and macro stories are the story of the brand. And we're going to talk about a couple at the end when we talk about some examples that I really like. But then there are micro stories. Now, a micro story might be a specific campaign that you're running, but I was thinking about it today. A micro story, you go into Zingerman's Deli. Sitting there next to the Daffinois cheese is a little card. And on that card, there's this whole story of the cheese. It's a micro story. And Zingerman's is an example I'm going to point out. I think Zingerman's tells fabulous stories. So, you know, this may be anything from the piece of copy that's on the cereal box all the way up to a full-blown campaign for the Apple Watch. So, you know, I think thinking about things in these terms, in terms of, okay, am I telling the macro story, which is the story of this brand, or am I telling the micro story, which is maybe a specific product, or a set of features that you have, or a collection if it's clothing things. I happen to love this ad. The headline of this ad, if the story's worth telling, they're wearing Filson. You're going to hear about Filson in a minute. They're one of my favorite brands. I think they tell fabulous stories.
Every athlete at every level has goals. Whether it's completing your first half marathon, beating that tall guy on the court, scoring your first goal, or becoming a world champion swimmer like Allison Schmidt. Chocolate milk helps you refuel, refresh, and rehydrate. Chocolate milk, official recovery beverage of USA Swimming, unofficial sports drink of athletes everywhere.
So this is a story that we recently helped the United Dairy Industry of Michigan tell. One of the things that's going on with dairy products is consumption's going down. It's going down very quickly. A lot of competition, a lot of other things you can drink, sparkling water, juices, sports drinks. One of the things that they figured out is that athletes of all levels want to be competitive. And chocolate milk is a fantastic sports recovery beverage. In fact, they've signed some very prominent athletes that you've probably seen in some of the national advertising. But the United Dairy Industry of Michigan in specific, Allison Schmidt, the Olympic swimmer, Andre Drummond of the Pistons, Justin Applicator is one of their most recent additions. We actually just did a TV commercial with him, which was a blast. Getting to go shoot down in Little Caesars Arena with like a world-class hockey player is awesome. And speaking of stories, you'll see some of the Andre Drummond footage a little later. So we were out at the Palace with him, and he's shooting jump shots from like way out in space. And our video producer says, "That's cool, could you do that with your left hand?" And he did. And I'm like, this is how you know when you're working with a world-class athlete versus a hack like us. So the story that we really wanted to help them tell at the dairy industry was chocolate milk can help you as the everyday athlete, as the fat guy who races mountain bikes. You can be like these great athletes. And it's really been a good process of kind of starting to build that story and starting to say, you know, don't go reach for Gatorade. It's not necessarily the best thing after a hard workout. So it's been kind of fun to tell some of those. All right, so here's the surprise portion of our presentation, because I don't know where I am. Some stories are short. And we're fortunate enough to have celebrity here because Scott actually made that video with us. This was the kickoff to First Congregational Church of Ann Arbor's capital campaign. And the goal was to really get the attention of the audience. This played out in a series of videos that you can see. I think they're on their YouTube page. I don't know that they're uploaded just yet. Last time I looked at it, they were working on it. But we created a longer story that was made up of a series of 3 smaller short stories. So the first one was about, essentially it was, what are we going to do with this money that we're trying to raise to improve the church? The first one was improve safety. Second was improve accessibility. And third was to improve engagement and fellowship. So when you put all 3 of these together, it tells the story of here's why we're doing this capital campaign to raise all this money. But really all we needed to do there was to get people to start thinking about it so that they were receptive when the rest of the story came along. Now I showed you the original dairy commercial. We've also done some long form versions of this. We did a 60-second version for use in YouTube, which you can see here.
Athletes at every level and age strive to meet their training goals and perform at their peak. Meeting those goals means putting in extra hours on the trail, in the gym, or on the court. It also means refueling after a tough workout with a drink that can keep up with you. Chocolate milk has carbohydrates and protein to rebuild muscles and electrolytes to replenish what's lost through sweat. Chocolate milk should be a key element in your training plan. Because chocolate milk is nature's sports drink, with no additives and a low cost, it's the perfect choice. So after your next training session, reach for the natural choice in recovery drinks to help you meet your performance goals. Low-fat chocolate milk. Chocolate milk, the unofficial recovery beverage of athletes everywhere.
So this gave us a chance to tell a little longer form version of this. But if you go onto our YouTube page, you'll see there are 15-second versions of different pieces of this. So we have one for high school football. We have another one for the ice hockey. Actually, the ice hockey one's about to come out. Just a variety of these that could be used in digital, and then you click through and you get this longer form version that existed on their YouTube page or on their website, depending on how they were running the campaign. But some stories got to be short and serve a purpose of getting your attention. Some got to be a little longer and tell more of a story. So I mentioned telling complex stories, and this is kind of what got me into all of this storytelling stuff. Is historically I've worked for a lot of clients who were in technology spaces that sells products or services that are in some way complex. So for example, I worked for one client in the injection molding industry that made plastic injection molding tooling. And we needed to show how do their ejector pins work better than other people's. Well, an ejector pin is buried way deep in the mold base, that's buried way deep in the machine, that's buried way deep in the factory. Well, that's kind of hard to get that out there. So we help them with some flash-based things, actually, that I'm not going to show you examples of today because they're ejector pins and plastic injection molds. And the chocolate milk's way more cool and sexy. Which it's hard to imagine chocolate milk is cool and sexy, but it is kind of fun. So you can take these technology products or even platforms, and I'm going to show you a couple examples in a little bit of technology platform kind of things. And you can take these really abstract concepts and start to put a story behind them and have people start to identify with them and go, oh, yeah, I have that problem. I didn't really know I did until you explained it like that. And I think that's another piece of what storytelling can do for technology products and services is it can help people realize that you're solving a problem that they didn't even know they had, which is not uncommon in marketing. So here's an example.
At Solano, we're making what's next into what's now in the distribution industry. Our artificial intelligence technologies enable an improved human-machine interface, greater situational awareness, and let man and machine work together to complete deliveries. The result? Increased efficiency, improved quality, and exceptional safety. With technology from Solano, delivery drivers in their truck become a seamless, smart team to meet and exceed these challenges. Let's look at some examples of how this can work. Intelligent body controller technology, coupled with our AI-driven human-machine interface, makes for a smarter system. The driver could operate vehicle controls to close and open doors, turn the truck on and off, and more, all through natural modes of communication such as speech. This leaves hands free to perform other tasks like package handling. With 360-degree situational awareness, the truck can inform the driver of the surrounding environment. Now you can plan future actions or avoid an unsafe situation. Your driver can tell the truck they completed a task, and the truck would recommend the fastest route to the next stop, given traffic, weather, and construction. AI technology even helps your drivers avoid unexpected road hazards, other vehicles, and even people. Your packages can tell the truck where they are to help the driver pick them more quickly and accurately at the next stop.
I love the scissor legs on the back.
And intense
And he has no arms when he
the
goes
truck
back
can
to
help
the
the driver with group deliveries and then move itself to the end destination. Using AI technologies from Soar Auto, we can even have trucks that combine these features to make a smart truck that teams with a smart driver to make your staff safer, more efficient, and ensure higher quality. All to help you meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. Soar Auto, what's next is what's now.
So I think this is a good example of one of these situations where there's a lot of things going on with artificial intelligence, and you're reading a lot more about them. But the client came to us and said, we're going to go present to these guys who make trucks for FedEx and UPS. This is not a terribly sophisticated industry, and we need something so that we can help them understand, well, what is all this artificial intelligence going to do for me, and how's it going to help me make my world better? And frankly, one of the concerns in that industry is artificial intelligence going to replace driver jobs? And another goal was to say, no, we just make the drivers you have better at their job, more efficient, higher quality, able to get more done and safer. So, it was kind of a fun way to do this. Now, I mentioned platforms a little bit, and AI obviously is one. We'll watch a video now from our clients at Siemens PLM Software. It's actually not Siemens, it's kind of corporate Siemens. And this is one of these ideas of this is the factory of the future. And manufacturing's seen a ton of evolution in the last 5 years, I'd say, really. AI and Internet of Things and all that is really going to fundamentally change the way we build products. And for a lot of those manufacturers, they're rooted in some pretty old practices that they've been doing for 30, 40, 50 years. And so we wanted to develop a tool to help them understand, here's a different way to do it. This particular piece is targeted at folks who run machine shops. So
the potential for the factory of the future is here now. It's a data-driven manufacturing environment that seamlessly connects your process, machines, robots, equipment, and all the other elements of your operation. It's an adaptive manufacturing system that can sense, learn, and share that knowledge with every resource in its ecosystem, including people. It's revolutionary technologies like additive manufacturing that will make impossible ideas possible, and advanced robotics that will transform both manufacturing and business, all while enabling greater efficiency, quality, and flexibility. It's a production system that knows the next move and adapts to changes on the fly. The key challenge facing today's machine shop is to use this new level of intelligence and communication from idea through production, and with access to this real-time information from anywhere, anytime, by anyone. At Siemens, we call this end-to-end interaction between the virtual and real worlds digitalization. That's how we're helping companies compete. Digitalization uses a digital twin to help you design the right product and discover the best way to make it. The digital twin is a precise virtual copy of both your real product as well as your manufacturing process and resources. We figured out the best way to seamlessly unite key elements from design through manufacturing and even actual use into a virtual model that performs like the physical equivalent. You reduce risk by ensuring every part is built on spec, on time, and on budget. You reduce bottlenecks and ensure process optimization. You take on more complex projects that would have previously been thought too risky or unprofitable. And finally, you increase flexibility with faster changes than ever before in any plant at any time. All of this to ensure you build the products your customers want, grow profits, and gain efficiency. At Siemens, we digitalize manufacturing so you can realize the factory of the future today.
So this particular piece, I think, is a good example of a really high-level conceptual sell that you're starting to teach that manufacturing training executive, hey, look, you can buy this combined suite of products from us and they'll all talk to each other and they'll enable you to do incredible things that you didn't think you could were even possible. This one's a good example of telling a smaller story. This is actually the first in a series of 3 videos. So there's this video that kind of introduces the concept. There's another one that does sort of a day in the life of an engineer, and it kind of says, well, you know, here's how your manufacturing engineer's day goes without this technology. Here's how it could go with this technology. And then the last one was for the more technical audience in terms of, okay, how does this work and what are all the pieces and parts and where do they come from and how do they fit together? So when you put it all together, you've got a really nice, complete story from end to end of, you know, let me paint you a vision for the future. And I think storytelling is a really good way to do that, where you've got a product that people don't necessarily know what they're buying. They kind of have this vague sense of, okay, it's technology and it's better, but you know, what does that really mean? I love to show videos because they're fun and they're awesome, but that doesn't mean that all storytelling has to happen in video. Here are a couple of examples for some clients. One of our recent additions of clients, we've been working with these guys for probably a year, is a company up in northern Michigan who makes plastic chain. Nobody in college told me that advertising was going to be this sexy. I had no idea. But these guys are this phenomenal little company in northern Michigan. They're growing 10 to 15% a year. It is the only North American made plastic chain you could buy. Any other plastic chain comes from China. It's environmentally responsible. The company invests in their employees. They guarantee their chain for 5 years. It comes in 16 standard colors and 8 standard sizes. Again, well, okay, that's kind of cool, but the best part is that this little company figured out that, okay, plastic chain's all well and good, but you got to attach it to stuff. And their focus is primarily on safety and crowd control applications. So they've come up with all of these various inventions for how do I attach plastic chain. So for example, they've got the loading dock kit. Every loading dock in America, according to OSHA standards, it's over 4 feet high, has to have a visual barrier whenever there's not a truck in it, so that people don't fall out of it. And, okay, that's cool. How do I attach that plastic chain across there? They came up with this little device, and it's a strap that goes around the posts that you see next to loading docks. And it's got a little C-hook on it. And then click, chain goes here, stretch the other one around there, click, chain goes there. Seems pretty simple, but nobody thought about it. Got another product called the cone connector kit. How do you hook plastic chain to a traffic cone? Duct tape. I'm not joking, actually. Until they came up with the cone connector kit. And it's a circle with 4 little C-hooks on it, and you drop it over the cone, and you clip the chain on there. I was in a wire over Christmas, and I go up to a checkout line. They have closed off. This is awesome. I actually took a picture of this and sent it to the CEO of my client. And they have a piece of plastic chain, and at both ends, they have like the baggy tie wraps holding it to the end. I'm like, dude, you need Mr. Chain. So one of the first products they came out with was their carabiner, magnet carabiner clip. So that's really cool. It's basically a magnet welded to a carabiner. So anything metal, you just clunk, stick it to it, and then you clip the chain right into the carabiner. That's cool. What if your stuff's not metal? What if it's stainless? What if it's a piece of wood? So then they came up with this super adhesive thing called the stick-all, and I love when I write smart-ass headlines like stick it anywhere, and the client buys it. That's kind of cool. But this was, for cases where, okay, maybe I've got aluminum, or maybe I've got a piece of wood, or it's drywall. Which, by the way, if you buy one of these, don't stick it to drywall, because the adhesive's really good. They found that out the hard way. But plastic chain is just not really all that sexy on its own. So we created a hero. The hero is part of the story. And Mr. Chain is the hero that brings safety and crowd control to your operation, no matter what the application is. And it's really changed kind of the way this little company talks about themselves, because they really were very modest, and they talked about a lot of features and a lot of other things. Well, now, we show up at trade shows for our distributors. Granger's one of their largest distributors. show up at the Granger show with Mr. Chain there on the booth. On Valentine's Day, we had 3 different women come into the booth, have their picture taken with Mr. Chain, and tweet it out as "I found my Valentine." That's it. When you get a story like that, it's like, yeah, it worked. Everybody bought into it. So it's really been fun. One of the pieces that we did is I feel like Pointer Technologies doesn't work. At the bottom center, you'll see this direct mail piece. One of the things we figured out was one of the ways you sell plastic chain is you get it in people's hands. And they can open it up and they can see all the colors and they go, oh, cool, yeah, all right, I do want to buy from you and I do need this. So you can take everything from Siemens Digital Machine Shop, which is kind of a way out there concept, all the way down to plastic chain, which is pretty easy to understand, and start to put a story behind it. Another organization, and you saw a little bit of the capital campaign video, but we've done, we did a pretty significant rebranding and remessaging with First Congregational Church of Ann Arbor. And one of the things that I really enjoyed during the research and the discovery process was that the religious viewpoints and values of the Ann Arbor area really mapped well to this church. So if you're not familiar with it, First Congregational is the cool, old, beautiful church that's right across the street from Diag. But it's in this really, really traditional building, but they have a super progressive, super open theology. So, you know, they don't care. They don't care what your background is. They don't care. They are non-judgmental. So it's kind of this really cool story of, as we came up with in this billboard, old building, new thing. And what we found was that a lot of people in Ann Arbor said, well, you know, I kind of like the more progressive churches like Northridge or 242, but I'm really not into that whole wearing jeans and t-shirts to church and seeing rock bands and stuff. I kind of want to go to a traditional church. So we've kind of tried to get that message out there. One of our target markets is 30-somethings. So, you know, this new billboard of the original social network. So you'll probably see some of these around town. They're out there and running right now. But it fits in with a larger story that we've been able to tell at this church that's kind of all built around whatever your story, you're welcome here. And some of that will be coming more video this year.
How did you guys come up with that slogan, the original social network? Did they have that, or did you guys like?
I wrote it.
Did you?
Well, I'm also our main copywriter, so if it's out there, I wrote it. We kind of started brainstorming around what were inflection points. So, for example, we had an early billboard that was "Empty Nesters Welcome Here," because one of the things we realized was that as people's kids got older and moved out of the house, they felt the need to reconnect with social networks that they hadn't had before, and this was a good inflection point and a good place to hit.
That's pretty clever.
Thanks. I have to say, that campaign started with me writing a smart-ass headline and taking it to a meeting, wondering how it was going to fly, and everybody loved it. And I'm like, oh, if you like smart-ass, I can do smart-ass all day. That's awesome. Let's go. I just finished up doing smart-ass Christmas ads, so those will be popping up pretty soon here. But it's kind of, you know, it's kind of a fun little different approach. So now we're at the point of the presentation where it's like, huh, I wonder what happens next. Come on. Okay. I thought I'd bring you some examples of some brands that I think do a phenomenal job of storytelling. So we saw the Filson ad earlier. If you're not into Filson, I'm a Filson junkie. You know, it's kind of one of those. If it's Filson, I'll buy it because it's just cool. But if you look at some of their materials, in particular, I think their catalogs do a great job of this. They will come out with a series where they'll shoot an entire catalog at a boatyard in Alaska. And the premise is, if this stuff's tough enough to survive in a boatyard in Alaska, it'll be just fine for you to wear around town. One of the things, though, that I think Filson's done brilliantly is they're a very old brand since 1897. And this is part of their brand narrative. They originally were created to make jackets for timber cruisers in the Pacific Northwest. Timber cruisers are the guys who wandered around out there and tried to figure out how many board feet of lumber were standing in an acre, and therefore how much it was worth. As you can imagine, they're pretty hard on clothes. And so that's kind of where the Filson brand got started. Well, fast forward, and probably 5-10 years ago, suddenly Filson became this hipster brand. But they've done a really good job of having a story for each group. So if you're like the old traditionalist Filson person like me, okay, this is pretty cool and this appeals to me. But if you're the urban hipster, yeah, we got something there for you too. And I think they've done a really good job of that. So I'd encourage you, if that's not a brand you've looked at much, it's definitely worth a look. Get on their mailing list. The catalogs are gorgeous. They do a really cool job. And I'll just apologize to your Visa card in advance. It's going to cost a lot. It adds up. Zingerman's is another one locally. And, I mentioned this idea of, I'm telling the story of this piece of cheese, but I think Zingerman's has done a great job throughout the community of businesses of telling the story of how the deli got started, how food gatherers spun out of the deli, how they put some more emphasis into investing in their workforce. And I think they tell a ton of good stories that sometimes look unrelated, but then when you put them all together, they all just fit really, really nicely. I think they're definitely one of my favorite examples. Shinola is another one that again I like, and what's interesting is same parent company owns Shinola as owns Filson. Bedrock actually bought Filson a few years ago, and they're the folks that started Shinola. Shinola's done this made in Detroit, and they had some problems with that when the FTC decided to get all difficult with everybody and say, well, then everything has to be made in Detroit. Well, they buy their movements from Switzerland. They assemble them.
People still complain.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and it's just I don't know, people who think too much. We got a few folks in Ann Arbor, so I understand. But I think Shinola's done a really nice job of bringing back pride in American Nebraskanship and Detroit as a manufacturing heritage and a manufacturing center. And I think it's cool that they started out doing watches, and then suddenly they were building bicycles, and now they're making turntables. There's an extensible brand. That's pretty cool. I think that's a really nice one. And then one of my other favorites, partially because I'm a Uber, is Stormy Cromer. Are you all familiar with Cromer? Yeah. They're those goofy looking hats with the, yeah. So the story behind that thing is Stormy Cromer was a railroad engineer who used to be a minor league baseball player. I don't know why they tell you that, because I don't know what that has to do with being a railroad engineer, but it sounds really cool. You're like, oh, hey, he's a minor league baseball player, that's sweet. Well, his head got cold all the time, his ears got cold. So he couldn't just wear a ball cap. So his wife sews up this wool thing and he can pull the ear flaps down. And they've now created this iconic brand that was recently named one of the top cool things manufactured in Michigan. So I thought it was kind of a neat story, but the Cromer folks have done a really good job of telling that kind of corporate story. And then they've done a nice job on social media. So for example, they went out and recruited a bunch of Cromer ambassadors. And these Cromer ambassadors would come in and do takeovers on their social media channel of, hey, here's me out running my dog sled with my Cromer hat on. I applied for the program, I wasn't cool enough. I guess I'm too old or something, or I don't have shea butter in my mustache or something like that. But I think Cromer's done a really cool job of kind of telling that story in a really, really genuine and consistent way. And they've taken something that's pretty mundane. I mean, it's a hat. But then they've now expanded it out into all of these other things and really become a national brand.
So who do you feel has done a terrible job?
Oh God, where would I start? So my normal one to pick on, I teach a class with a friend of mine. I teach a class up at Kettering University in entrepreneurship. Meijer. I hate Meijer. So you got Target, you got Walmart. Walmart knows who they are, they know who their customers are. Target knows who they are, they know who their customers are. Target doesn't want Walmart's customers, and Walmart doesn't want Target's customers. Meijer is all over the road. One day we're everyday low prices, the next day we've got cool stuff, another day we've got these designer brands, the week after that we've got something else. At the end of the day, the value proposition behind Meijer is pretty simple. It's 9:30 on Thursday night, and you need dog food, milk, tampons, and shotgun shells. That's why you go to Meijer. And I told this story, it was really funny because my buddy that I teach the class with sends me a text the one day of his Meijer grocery cart. And it looks pretty much like that. And I'm like, see Larry, I told you. So Meijer, they can't figure out who they are. They're all over the road. So I may pick on them too much, but they're one that, and now you'll watch their advertising, you'll be like, yeah, there really isn't much consistency going on with these guys. Yeah, they are kind of all over the road. My other one to pick on has always been Traverse City Pie Company. What does Traverse City Pie Company spend about half their advertising dollars doing? Telling you that they make more than pie. I think that's a branding problem. We're more than just pie. Well, since you were called Traverse City Pie Company, I wouldn't have assumed that, so thanks. You know, frankly, not a lot of people tell their story very well. I think most of the major auto companies are fairly retail. Volkswagen would probably be my exception. I think they do a pretty good job of telling their story. But you know, any of the GM brands, I don't think GM tells their story very well. And Ford's story is we just try to remain profitable, as near as I can tell. So it's interesting. I think the auto companies could benefit from some more emphasis on that. I think they're an industry in general that, now there are brands within there that do really well. Jeep is a phenomenal storytelling brand. Jeep's a phenomenal brand. I'm also a Jeep slappy, even though I'm currently driving around, but the lease is up this year. But I think Jeep does a really good job of it. Subaru does a great job of that. I mean, you look at the loyalty of their owners, and a lot of that is through telling their stories to folks. I think some others. I think Patagonia does a really nice job, particularly in their print publications and on their website. You know, they have their Patagonia ambassadors, and they're kind of out, you know, telling their stories of how they use the product. But at the same time, Patagonia's also got this premise of we're here to try to not destroy the planet, and I think they do a nice job telling that.
So what do companies like Sears do? Is it marketing or is it more than that?
I think it's a number of things. I think they underestimated the impact of e-commerce. And I think they underestimated exactly how good Amazon was and is. And yeah, I think they lost their brand story too.
I mean, you look at JCPenney, and they started off, it wasn't e-commerce, but they kind of pioneered like the catalog.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of those companies just sort of missed this turn. You know, I think retail's going to be an interesting space. I have, as a marketer, I have my own theories. I don't really do any retail marketing, so I'm mostly just there observing it. But I think Sears lost its way with their story just a bit. I mean, I heard a rumor recently that the Craftsman brand is for sale. Why on earth would you ever sell that brand? Now, I think Kenmore is too. So there's touring, like, you're giving away your two best assets. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Yet, I think there's one company that's going to give Amazon a run for their money, and it's Walmart, because they figured it out. Now, that'll be interesting because I think the Amazon buyer is not necessarily the Walmart buyer. And how they're going to reconcile all that is TBD. I think right now it's just Walmart's doing a good job of it, and they seem to have the technology and thinking behind it to keep doing it. Are there other brands that you like that you think tell good stories?
Going back to the Meyer thing, my daughter-in-law is a pharmacist, and her first job out of pharmacy school was with Meyer here in Ann Arbor. And she would always say, well, the traffic's pretty slow at Meyer. Then she moved out to Grand Rapids, and it was insane. You know, the store was just filled all the time. Yeah. And so what she would say is, Meyer's story is, if you're from Grand Rapids, you go to Meyer.
If you're Dutch, you'll shop here.
Yeah.
If your name's Van something or other.
Patagonia, and they're very true to their values in terms of protecting the environment. Like, we want you out there, we're providing you equipment and clothing to be out there, and we're going to help it be nice for you to be out there.
And I think one of the other things that Patagonia does really well that I think is cool, USA Today and the internet and Facebook turned us all kind of stupid. Nobody reads anymore. So, and as a guy who's a significant part of my background is in copywriting, and Patagonia still uses long form copy. You know what? People read it. Now, you know, maybe they've educated their consumer a little more. I heard somebody else mention Land's End. Yeah, I think they've done a nice job. LLB.
Nike?
Yeah, I think they do too. They've struggled a little lately, finding their voice, I think. But yeah, I think in general they do a good job.
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's is an excellent example. Yeah, I mean, you go in there and every single product, no matter how mundane it is, you know, here's a bag of white rice and it's got a story on it of how that bag of white rice got there. Oh, like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, and again, you're engaging people. You're getting them to invest in themselves. You're getting them to kind of see, oh, I got some connection to this product. It's really cool. I didn't know that. You know, the Cromer hat. oh, those are made in Michigan. Wow, that's neat. I had no idea. You know, and Cromer's done this really cool thing. They've started with the hats. You can now buy a version that's embroidered with your state on it. And in Michigan, you can buy one with just the UP on it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I have one. Other brands?
IKEA?
IKEA, yeah. Hard to put together and frustrating and crappy instructions. Yeah, that's definitely, I think they tell different stories than that, actually.
They got names for the furniture.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you heard of a company called Orbis?
Oh, yeah.
I used to work for them.
Okay. I am the virtual marketing director for Schultz Outfitters in Ypsilanti, which is an Orbis dealer. So I have a bunch of familiarity with Orbis. The only challenge I think Orbis had, and they've come through this really well, is that was a company that really was started for the sports person. It was really started for hunters and anglers. And then they got off into dog beds and $300 barber coats, and they kind of lost that world. And in fact, their fly fishing stuff for quite a while was kind of junk. And they realized that their story wasn't matching their product, and they've actually gone back and significantly re-engineered a lot of their products. And now some of their fly rods, their Orbis Helios is one of the best rods out there. I've got a bunch of Orbis reels that are just phenomenal, and I abuse them. Yeah, I think Orbis is a good one. They do tell good stories, and I think companies like that get you into that whole mode of, oh, I can see myself using this product, and here's how it would fit in my everyday life. The originators of storytelling in mass media. Anybody watch Seinfeld at all? Jay Peterman.
Yeah.
There you go. That was the early days of storytelling. Yeah.
Based on your experience, what are some of the factors that contribute to a story sort of falling apart as a company?
I think probably the biggest thing about a story falling apart is when you're really pushing, when you haven't done your audience research, when you're pushing what you want to sell them as opposed to what it is they need or they want to buy. I think that's where more people get themselves in trouble, because then it looks like a sales pitch instead of a story. So I think that's one. And then I'd say probably the second area is if you're telling a story that's too complicated, you're trying to put too much stuff in. Again, this kind of goes back to earlier, I mentioned that, we've all got that friend that tells lousy stories, and it's usually because they put way too much in. I have a storytelling video that I don't show up here, because it was one of the earlier ones we did, and we got an overzealous product manager, and it's too damn long. And there's like a point you reach in the video where you're like, I'm out, I'm done, too much, brain shut off. So I think that's another place where people get in trouble. So a few helpful hints. Wherever you can, I mentioned that the story has a hero. Make the customer the hero if you can. Because that's what they want to be. They want to say, if I buy this product, I'm going to be the world's greatest fly fisherman, and I'm going to be able to cast 100 feet. No, you're not. But if you think you are, that's really cool. Or if I buy this Filson jacket, I could go out and I could walk through a forest and get eaten by a grizzly bear and be all in one piece. Probably not, but okay. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Don't make the story complicated. People won't like complicated stories. They bail out. You don't have to tell the whole story in one place. Think about how you might break it up. Social media has become a really good example of this. It's a good way to say, okay, this week we're going to trot out this part of the story, and then next week we're going to tell a little more, and then the week after that we'll tell a little more, and then maybe we'll do one that brings it all back and pulls it all together. And then kind of related to that, omni-channel storytelling. We've got thousands of ways to reach people these days. Use them all and think about which one's the best for your story. YouTube's really great for video stories, but we're telling the first congregational story on billboards because it works really well for that particular. I threw this in this morning too. As a storyteller, I had somebody that used to work for me that she had a whole list on her wall of banned words. And I'm starting to kind of get onto this program. So artisanal, we should just all make that go away from the English lexicon. Authentic, please don't, no. Everything's authentic. It actually is what it is. Heritage, another of my favorites, or hewn, I always love that. Very few things actually get hewn. Go out and...
World's best.
World's best is good too, yep. World renowned. The hewn one makes me think of, go on YouTube sometime when you're looking for pure entertainment, and there's a thing on artisanal wood shavings. So just search artisanal wood shavings, the video's hilarious. And it's this whole parody of all this, you know, farm to table and hand craftsmanship and all of these kind of things that have gone over the edge. But be on the lookout for these kind of words, and you all know what they are. You've all seen them and stuff where you're like, oh, if I hear that word one more time, I'm just going to lose my mind.
Yeah, I've never seen, I can't.
Oh yeah, I get a bunch of catalogs at home. I'm an outdoorsy type. I get a bunch of catalogs at home that it's like hewn from the finest blocks of steel. I'm like, well, first off, you don't hew anything; you cut it with CNC. But okay, yeah, I'll have to get Amy's list. There's a pretty good one. Forged is another nice. That one would definitely hit my list. Very few things get forged anymore. And as a manufacturing technology, forging actually kind of sucks. It's hard on the material. There are those who have joked that I cannot do a PowerPoint without a picture of me holding a fish. So congratulations, this is part of my story. And there are stories to go with each one of those fish. Yeah, I held it for the end this time. So if you want, yeah, it's even me. If you want to stalk me on LinkedIn, that's the place to do it. Feel free to connect. And questions, stuff we didn't get to. It was a pretty interactive group. Usually I have to put the questions up here to get somebody.
How do you qualify what's a good story worth telling?
I think by understanding the audience. I think that's really key. And I would say that that's sort of that's kind of my general philosophy of a lot of marketing is I think a lot of marketers don't spend enough time thinking about who is my audience and what are the problems they have? And do they know about those problems or do I have to help educate them? I think that's really a key piece. Well, the hook's up, I'm done. Time's up.
I get to end the meeting because Corey had to go. So everybody gets to introduce themselves. It's always fun to do. There's a bunch of us, so if everybody could just make it short and sweet. And if you have something to ask, then go right ahead. And we'll start right here.
Hi, I'm Jim Dobrowski. I work for the Dental Advisor. I'm the creative director there. I've been there 4 years, and before that, I spent 26 years in newspaper business.
My name is Sonny Beach. I do usability design work, website work.
So let's go back. I'm an architect and also write on building materials and sustainability. Probably another bad word, sustainability.
Hi, my name is Kim Burkle, and I own Key Community Marketing, and I'm proud to say that we're starting our 3rd year in business in 2019. What we do is we promote organizations with a customized combination of business development and also community outreach. Our goal is to tell a story with the local community being a feature, and the result is new opportunities, partnerships that give back to the community while growing your business. Thank you.
My name is Rick Tempke, and a company called Tempke Solutions. I help grow and protect small businesses in ways in which they never thought possible.
Oh, I'm Nancy. I'm a creative director and art director, and I have a handful of small manufacturing clients in Jackson that I represent.
Yeah, I'm Chris Skamansky. I have a company called Design Hub. We're a creative services and marketing firm in Saline. I got to tell just the quickest story related to storytelling. I'm a huge believer in it, but about 3 years we were in working with a client we'd done a little bit of work for, and we spent a whole afternoon with them exploring more things that we could do for them. And at the end, our whole team was there. At the end, she kind of held me back, the president of this company, and she said, "You tell too many stories." It's the first time I ever heard that. Yeah, I only told 3 short ones.
My name is Jeff O'Boyle. I'm a family medicine doctor. I opened my own clinic called Beyond Primary Care here in Ann Arbor. And it's a clinic that provides basically concierge medicine services, but for normal people.
Hi, I'm Janet Max. I'm a writer and editor, and I've got a Christmas present for you. It is a reminder to file your 2018 tax returns. Get going on them now, because I heard, I just pulled up a story I heard on the radio. The new tax code is so complicated and crazy that there are a lot of CPAs who are like 3 years out to retirement who have said, I'm done. I'm not even gonna try to learn all this. So I'm always late, not this year.
My name is George Pariseau. My studio is Brainstream Creative, and I produce video. The feedback I often get is, hey, you did a really great job capturing the essence of our community, our business. Also, when people aren't crying at the bill that I give them, I've been told that they were so moved by the content that they were moved to tears. My focus is on producing, so when things go right, everyone else gets credit, and when things go wrong, everything is my fault. And I focus on just trying to help guide people through the multitude of options they have when producing corporate video.
Jenny Heller, I work with Jim at the Dental Advisor, and I also work doing social media, photography, website stuff for the Black Pearl downtown Ann Arbor.
Oh, nice.
I'm Evan Arhangelos. My family owns Colossus Printing. We're here in Ann Arbor. We have a couple of stores. We can take care of any of your signs, banners, or any printing needs, trade show graphics to business cards.
I'm Chuck Colby. I work for Cade Advertising. I'm the director of sales for Michigan. Cade is a company that's owned by a Michigan family, but the headquarters is in Tallahassee, Florida, and we're expanding in Michigan right now. So this is the end of my first year being at the company. I also sing in a musical group called 3 Men and a Tenor, and we're performing tonight at the Encore Theater in Dexter. But the tickets are also.
My name is Ann Abrams. I've had quite a long career history in marketing, copywriting, sales, advertising, and I've recently moved to Ann Arbor from Oakland County, from the Bloomfield, Birmingham area, and I was just kind of thinking, great, trying to figure out what my next step is.
Hi, Jessica Ives. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Renaissance Venture Capital, and one of the roles is marketing and PR, so I'm just expanding my knowledge.
Hi, Ron Liu, and I'm doing marketing. I've been selling for Nova Technology, and we're trying to sell with a LinkedIn program to help patients secure product safety.
I'm Matt Aldrich. Sorry. Board member here at LA2M, CEO at Framework Media. We do web design, social media, videography.
Hi, I'm Tina Watson. I'm in IT. I'm in transition, but I'm not looking for leads right now because I have my final interview. I'm one of 2 finalists for my dream job. So.
My name is Matt Garland. I work for a company called OtterBase, and we assist other companies with IT and engineering staffing needs.
I'm Brittany Prosing. I'm an account manager with OtterBase, so I go out to companies to help support IT, engineering, and staffing needs.
My name is Scott Nudo. My company's name is Video and Internet Stuff, so I do video and internet stuff. I write, produce, shoot, edit, and help my clients activate their videos on social media. And so I mostly do corporate work, small businesses, hospitals, schools, churches.
And Scott is, as an endorsement, Scott is my secret weapon for affordable, high-quality video stories.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Phillip. I work for a firm called Q, and I'm a branch registered writer and
Curtis Sherwin, Frog Print Studios, and I'm a commercial editorial and portrait photographer, videographer, drone pilot, produce content that you use for your marketing. If you're a runner, you've probably seen me at races or at golf tournaments. My main clients is Trading Sports Publications, which does Michigan Runner News and Michigan Golfer News.
And I'm Roger Rail. I do video here and for several other worthy community events.
That's it? Usually longer than that. You surprised me.
I Time's up.
Okay, I'm Stacy with Dollar Bill Printing. We're down in Ann Arbor, and I've worked there 30 years. And I'm the secretary and planner of LA2M. So if you know of a speaker, please email me. You can click on the link in the emails I send you and respond and tell me a name or of a person that you've heard speak, because that's the hardest part of the job, is vetting and getting good speakers. That's it, I think. Thank you, Sean, very much. I'm sure Sean will be here for a few minutes if anybody wants to say anything. I know he hasn't brought our checks yet. Some people are still eating. We're not kicked out, so everybody can stay and hang around and talk and network. And did Corey announce January's meeting? It's the second Wednesday in January. So I think it's like the 13th or the 12th. And it's already posted up there, but I forget who it is. I'm sorry, because I thought Corey was gonna do it.
I bet it's a single digit.
Oh, you think it's a single digit?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Anyway, you'll get the emails.
Oh, I have the
You have
device
it?
that would
Well,
tell
the
me.
second Wednesday is the 9th, and the third Wednesday is the
So it's the 9th. So January 9th, we'll be back. But I cannot remember who it is, but it's up on the website.
Is it
so.
here?
Yeah, here, yes. Yeah. And everybody have a wonderful Christmas and happy holidays!
Your fish on top, is that a large?